Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for the Payday 3 news update, and a much more pleasant one than yesterday's update 4 because we've got some proper, solid, game-changing stuff happening in this dev blog and also in the wider update, hopefully, that this blog is attached to, because adaptive armor, the thing we'll be talking about today, is being aimed at by Starbreeze at releasing in the very next patch for the game, which based off their current projections of about 4 to 6 weeks between patches, means we're looking at roughly an April release date for this update. It's not ideal, I know, but this update will hopefully have a lot more to it, as they're planning to release this alongside a new skill for armor we'll get into later called Clean Slate, a new skill line called Fortitude which works all around health, and also on top of that the overheal system where you heal a little bit extra health over your maximum and it slowly decays over time. Some really good stuff, and these are all things the partners were testing over the last couple of weeks. They're hoping to put them all out in one update later down the line, so if it does all drop, we're going to have a lot more to talk about in the next update. It'll be much better than the one we got yesterday, which I'm really excited about. We need some game-changing stuff, and here we've got a proper insight into how adaptive armor specifically is working from Payday 3's game director Mio. So what I'm going to do is take you through this post, give my thoughts on it, and just do a bit of a quick recap, because there's not tons to it, but enough information that makes it quite interesting to read through. So let's do it. So Mio Drag, the game director on Payday 3, would like to talk about the new adaptive armor system. It's gone through both internal testing and testing with some of our Payday players, the Starbreeze partners. They've gotten promising feedback and are ready to show what they've been cooking, and you can see here a picture of the adaptive armor next to other armor sets, and now it actually seems like it's going to be telling you the stats of the armor. So instead of it just having, the picture of the armor and a light description, it's going to tell you the chunks, chunk damage regen, maximum downs, damage reduction, speed penalty, and also mentions about trauma damage. So trauma damage meaning once you take a hit, you don't then get the armor back is the idea there. So trauma damage is permanent, but this adaptive armor doesn't take any, it heals it back. The only time it won't heal it back is if you've lost a full chunk, which they'll explain now. So armor has been a popular topic among the community and a fairly polarizing one. What they initially envisioned was a resource that eventually runs out during the course of combat, same as health, but the idea was that you would plan how much of each resource type you need to bring with you, depending on the heist and playstyle, and try and pull off the heist as fast as you can with those constraints. But that's why the current armor works in the way it does in game now. Each time it takes damage, you lose a bit of it permanently, and even after it regenerates. So you're always taking permanent damage. They never intended for you to get it all back, but the problem is, Payday 3's meta has not really adapted very well to that. Players have been using it very differently. As Mio says, Payday 2's armor was more of a shield. It would always fill back up, but Payday 3 wasn't designed for that, but a lot of players prefer it in the way that it was in Payday 2. So, they have noted that since the game launched, the permanent damage feels punishing and leads to some stressful micromanagement. Ways to restore armor are very limited. Some heists due to their length are simply easiest to complete by bringing as much armor as possible, and it also doesn't feel like there are enough variety of playstyles for surviving a loud heist. All four of these very true statements, and all four I've certainly encountered in my playtime. They plan to address each of these points with different updates and changes to the game, but they'd also like to clarify they have no intention of changing the current available armors in the game. They know they've been requested to just change the Payday 2 system, but such a change would require them to rework how they balance combat, skills, and various other aspects of the game. And while it doesn't mean they'll never make a change like this, it's currently not planned. And I think it's important to note that, of course, they can say we might change it down the line and never do it, but bear in mind, they did say they weren't going to change the challenge system, they were going to adapt it to make it more enjoyable for players, and now they've just decided to scrap the whole thing and go, you know what, screw it, go back to original progression. So I don't think that's a lie. I think if people really did want it to change back to Payday 2s if this didn't work, they may well do it, but I do think what they're doing with adaptive armor is hopefully going to be enough that people have got all the options that they need and will be happy with them. And as you'll see later on, this isn't the only armor kit they're willing to add. They are willing to put more in if people ask for them. So I think this is a very good compromise, and I think this will come off better with players, personally, than just saying, oh, you get a bit of XP for finishing a heist, but most of its challenges, I think this will go down much better. At least that's my hope. So here's the nitty gritty as to how the armor style works. So it's got two chunks, as we said. The chunks need 4.5 seconds to regenerate. You get 2 max downs with a build. You then have 5% damage reduction, whereas the regular armor has 25%. A light speed penalty, same as the light ballistic armor. So the 2-chunk normal armor takes no trauma damage, so you will regenerate any damage you take other than a chunk breaking. But adaptive armor will also have a different HUD color, so you can tell who's running what in your crew. So it won't just be purple for you, it'll be purple if any other teammates in your HUD are using it too, which is very good, and it plays into another problem that people have with the game at the minute, where you can't see what a lot of your teammates are bringing. You can't see medic bags, things like that. I'm sure hopefully those things will be added later on, but seeing what army you're bringing is a good first step, being conscious and forward thinking as to making sure we know what our teammates are doing. I think that's very, very helpful. In short, adaptive armor lining does not take permanent trauma damage, but you can also take less damage before a chunk breaks. If a chunk breaks, you still need to restore it with an armor bag, but in theory, you can make it last forever if you take cover in time. So in a practical sense, if you don't want to deal with armor maintenance as much, this is the armor for you, and it will let you do some aggressive plays if you're smart about it, but utilizing regular armor and repair kits might last you much longer than adaptive armor with certain builds. You can also pair it with, as I mentioned earlier, the upcoming Clean Slate Tank Mastery skill that's coming in the same patch as this armor. The skill will let you use armor repair kits to restore an armor chunk if you have no armor. So that means if you're trying to play as aggressively as you want to, and you're taking a little bit too much damage and you're losing all your armor, if you find armor repair kits, it will restore one chunk and you can keep trying to keep the one chunk going, or find an actual armor, a proper armor kit and put 2 plates on then. It's up to you, but there are options there with that skill, and I think that's going to be greatly appreciated. But it does confirm that that skill and the armor will definitely be in the same update, hopefully the next one. Hopefully that also means Fortitude and Overheal will come with it, but that's obviously going to be confirmed later, close to the time. That's their hope right now. We'll see if it comes out in execution. I hope it does, because having some armor and health fixes at the same time would be beautiful. I'd love it. But what does this mean for future armor? Well, depending on community feedback on the adaptive armor, we will consider adding more variants of it with a different amount of chunks, while remaining fairly flexible in how we design future armor. One example is we can have an armor that always generates the first chunk, or has a mix of regular and adaptive armor chunks. Tell us what you'd like to see, but please keep in mind that anything we add is always going to have some sort of trade-off compared to regular armor. And if you click this link here, I'm assuming it's going to take you to the feature upvote page. Yeah. So again, this is still a page that hasn't had any actual feedback as things have been done on here, so I would like to see that start to get things. I mean, for example, you can now, you can't unready in lobby. So yeah, I mean, you can unready now, so that should be ticked off as done. So I hope they start to tick things off that are actually done to make it more aware that they are responding to this site. But yeah, so you can let them know if you have any extra feedback. But there you go, that's everything to say about adaptive armor from dev blog number 2. Definitely a much better blog than the first one, giving some proper insights, and I'm glad Mio was able to explain it in more detail, offer all the information there. I think the blog could have done with saying that it was going to be in the next update. I had to confirm that to make sure that that information was true. That should have been in the blog, only because if you've got information to offer that will make people happy, it should be in there. But that's just me being a little bit of a nitpicker. The actual blog itself, I think, is really good. And like I said, I got a bit of pushback on comment sections yesterday from my video being a little bit too hard on the new update. As far as I'm concerned, I know this is probably an update they had ready before Operation Medic Bag, but you announce a big thing to kind of say you're fixing the game, you want to make the game more enjoyable so more people come back and more people have fun. That update yesterday isn't going to achieve that. So for me, as the first update, it wasn't a good start. However, I knew in the back of my head, and I mentioned it in the video, that big things were coming, and this kind of update with this kind of stuff will hopefully be a lot better and be a proper big bash forward from this operation. So fingers crossed we see it all very soon. And also just slipping this in afterwards in the middle of me editing. That's why yesterday with the skills thing, I am sorry I didn't go over those in the video, but as I said in the video, I ain't played the game enough recently to be able to comment on it with any level of detail, and that was something I was very conscious of. I knew there'd be other videos that had gone into it in more detail, and I didn't want to offer some subpar explanation to kind of try and compete with that. I figured I'm not going to know it, I'll leave that bit out and let people read over it if they want. It's a very rare exception, it ain't going to happen in any other videos, it's just that right now I'm not playing the game enough to comment on it. By the time the next update comes out, if it's got as much stuff in here as it is saying it's going to and hoping it's going to, then I'll have much more to say, and I hopefully won't have any knowledge gaps, so count yesterday as a one-off. But thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all tomorrow with the video I mentioned yesterday. Until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you all with some more content very soon. Much love, take care.